So, the new drone laws in Canada that was implemented on June 1st, 2019. Do you know anything about it? Let's talk about it. Hi, welcome back to EducateTube.com. My name is Sipsky, your host. Today, I'll be talking about the top 10 things you may not know about the new Canadian drone laws effective June 1st, 2019. I'll also even give you two bonus in there as well. Now, before I do that, let's just summarize what we do know about the new Canadian drone laws. Number one, of course, is that you need to have written the basic drone exam. You have to get 65%. There's 35 questions. You have 90 minutes to write it. It's online. You can write it as many times as you want if you failed, but there's a 24 hours, cycle. So you got to wait 24 hours before you write the next one. Okay. Once you write it, you get the certificate. You can print that out. Make sure you have it in your wallet all the time. So if they ask you for it, you have to prove that right away. Okay. In addition, you need to register your drone, each one that you own, and it costs about $5. And then you have to put that registration number on your drone that's visible, right? So, for example, if the officer who checking you out, you got to make sure your drone has that number, so he can actually check online to make sure that you have a drone that's been registered. Okay, so those things that you probably already know. If not, you need to be aware of, all right, if you do own a drone. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the top 10 things that you may not know and two bonus. Number one, the new Canadian drone laws does not apply to flying indoors or underground. Okay, I think a lot of people don't know that, but if you decided to fly, let's say in a warehouse, in your house, outside the airspace, okay, so within in a warehouse, some kind of contained environment that's not outside this the wall, right? Now, I think there's also a limit too. I don't know how high, let's say you're in a building that's like 500 feet tall, which is probably unlikely. I don't think you will be in a building where the ceiling is 500 feet. But let's say you were very wealthy, you could build one. Is it gonna be limited? I think it still apply. The law doesn't apply to that as well. Okay, but anyway, the important thing is that it does not apply to indoor flying or underground flying. Number one. Number two, you might have heard that the highest maximum height from ground you can fly is 122 meter or 400 feet. But what you don't know is that if you encounter a structure, a tall structure like a building, the maximum height you can fly is only additional 30 meters. Okay, so be aware of that. So, for example, let's say you fly over a building. It's got to be less than 122 meters. In fact, let's say the building was 50 meters, and then you can only fly an addition 30 meters. So the maximum height is actually 80 meters. It's crazy, right? Because like you got to be monitoring how high you fly now. Like if you're in a high structure, you got to lower it down to maximum 30 meter from the highest structure of the building. So that involves experienced flying. Okay. Number three, you may know that 14 years old and older can register their drone and then write the tests. But what you don't know is that you can be under 14 years old to fly the drone, as long as the underage or 14 years old, less than 14 years old individual has a experienced certified drone pilot. So in other words, if I have a basic drone pilot, I can let my son, who's 12 years old, flying it as long as I supervise him wisely. Okay, so let's be aware that you could be under 14 to fly the drone as long as there is a licensed pilot, okay, drone pilot who advise and assist that young group. Number four, if you have a drone less than 250 grams, okay, the law does not apply to you for the new Canadian drone laws. Okay, now you still have to be safe about it. They do have statement where you gotta be safe and use your common sense. But all these regulation, like how high you should fly, have to be line. It has to be visible and line of sight. Those things doesn't apply to a drone that's less than 250. And that's why I actually made a drone that's less than 250 from DJI Spark, and I was able to fly that drone without registering and without you know well, I can fly closer than 30 meters, so and even over people. Okay, as long as I'm wise about it and be safe about it. So that's something. And another thing is, yeah, because if it's less than 250 grams, then you could actually build your own drones. There's a lot of how do yourself drone kit you can do that's 250, or they call it the FPV drones, right? So the only problem with those drones is that the battery lasts less than 10 minutes. So, well, you can't have it all, right? Number 5, not all drones are approved for advanced flying. Like, for example, if let's say you got advanced pilot license, you may not be able to fly the drone that you own. For example, if you have Inspire 1, you cannot fly in a control air. Oh, you can. Oh, sorry, you can fly in the air control airspace, but you cannot fly near people. Now, recently, I just made a video about a couple weeks ago that showed DJI actually stepped forward and became proactive in assuring that their drone is safe, according to Transport Canada. So they were able to get approved to most of their recent drones, like the Phantom 4, the Mavic Air, the Mavic 2 Pro, and Mavic Pro as well. You can check the Transport Canada website for that, and allow you to, if you have advanced certificate, you could fly near people in the controlled airspace. Okay, so be aware of that. But like Parrot drone, the Anefi or something. I can't remember the name of that drone. Apparently, they're not being approved to fly in controlled airspace or closer than 30 meters. So you need to look at those approved drone list. Okay. So even if you have advanced pilot certificate, doesn't mean you can fly your drone close to people or over people. Just be aware of that. Number 6, because that your drone has to be always visible, a line of sight, you cannot use follow me feature in your drone, unless of course follow me mean like you're looking at a drone at all times. Yeah, then maybe that's okay. But if you, like, say, turn around and start walking without looking at drone, well, then you cannot do that. Okay, apparently you have to be looking at drone. It has to be visible in your line of sight at all time. But here's the catch, though. If you have a visual observer who you communicate with him or her up front and while you're walking, like say you have walkie-talkie, then yes, you can actually use the follow me, because now the visual observer is now helping you to see where the drone's going. So just be aware of that. If you're going to do follow me, just have a spotter, a visual observer, that they can see the drone in the line of sight, and then communicate that with you constantly through some kind of communication, like a radio signal that you can hear the spotter, visual observer. Okay. Number 7, keep log of your flight and maintenance logs. Well, now some people say you need 2 different type of log: the log that you're flying, and also your maintenance log. I suggest that's a little bit too much. I would say combine the 2 together. So maybe in the future, what I'll do is I'll make a template for you guys, and you can have a look at mine. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the paper into 2 portion. One is the regular pre-flight, and then the post-flight, and then the regular flying checklist. And then, of course, if there's a maintenance, it'll be on the side, and it will tell me like what has been changed. For example, if I broke my propeller, I would change a new one. Then along the right side, it will say maintenance of the drone and the date and all that stuff. and then we'll say what I changed. So all in one page. I think that's more efficient and more logical, because if you have two book, and if you lost, let's say, one of them, then what's the point, right? So make sure. Anyway, the point of this is that you need to keep a logbook and a maintenance record of your drone. If it's log book, then you have to keep it for 12 months. Transport Canada might ask you for it if something happens, and if you damage your drone, you have to keep it for 24 months. And here's another catch though: this is number 8, if you decide to sell your drone to a new owner, you have to transfer that record, the maintenance log, and the log book to your new owner. Okay, so I think this is a head scratcher, right? So if you ever want to sell your drone, and you're flying it, and you have you said you have the certified basic certificate. Now, if you haven't registered your drone and you haven't been flying it, right, because you don't have the certificate, then you can sell it as is, like as used and all that. Then you should be fine, because you're not really keeping a record of your flying, because you're not allowed to fly anyway. But if you are a drone pilot and you're trying to sell a drone to another drone pilot, yep, you need to give all your log and maintenance logbook to your new owner. Okay. Number 9, night flying is allowed. Yes, as long as you have some kind of a beacon, like a light that allow the drone to be visible, so you can see it while you're flying it when it's landing and all that. So either you or the visual observer can see that drone, then it's fine. So you can do night flying as long you have some kind of light to signal that's your drone, and you can identify it within the line of sight. Okay, so that's fine. Number 10, I don't know, a lot of people know this, but you can fly up to 5 drones at the same time, as long as the drone has ability to do that. In other words, if it's a manufactured drone that designed for that kind of feature. Now, I can't think of a drone that you can actually control 5 at the same time, other than Intel's experimental drone that they did, during, I think they're displaying, I can't remember, during some kind of event. I saw that they were able to control like many drones at the same time. Okay, and I think Tello might be able to, but I don't know about 5 drones. Maybe you can control 2 or 3 drones at the same time. I think Tello from DJI apparently could do that. But anyway, Tello is under 250 grams, so this law doesn't apply to it anyway. We're talking about a drone that's more than 250 grams, right, to 25 kilograms. And if you could fly 2 or more at the same time, as long as it was meant for that, like the feature of that drone is meant for that, then you can. But in general, you can only fly 1 drone at a time, because that's what it's designed for. Okay. All right. For the bonus part, if you're a tourist, let's say you're not Canadian citizen or permanent resident, officially you're banned. Yes, you're banned from Canada to fly, unless you work for a company that's registered in Canada, and somehow you associate with Canadian. And there's also some official as well, that's your majesty. I don't know the other criteria, I'm a bit confused with that too, but apparently just say you're from another country and you're a tourist, you're coming to Canada, no, you cannot fly here in Canada. That's a bummer, right? Yep, it is. And it's gonna cause a lot of headaches for tourism, I can tell you that now. And last but not least, the second bonus, which is confusing to me, and I'm going to tell you right now, is okay, so the new laws, let's say you broke it. Apparently it's enforced by Transport Canada, and it's and Transport Canada is working with RCMP, right, the federal police in Canada, that pretty much they call it as transport inspector. So they're certified inspector with supposed to be have official credential, so they will come and check you out. Let's say if they suspect that you might have done something wrong, or even if you didn't do anything wrong, they just want to make sure that you're flying legally. You have your certificate accessible right away, and they may even check your logbook and all that. So they may do that. Okay, but here's my issue though. I hope that these officers are trained with advanced license as well, because how can they evaluate you if they don't even know the law itself? Okay, so that's my kind of think about it. So like it's like this. Okay, let's say you're writing a test, and the person who wrote the test, it doesn't even know the question. That's the problem. So how do they measure that you're breaking the law, right? Like, what is it? And here's another thing. Like, when they say you can fly no closer than 30 meters, do they actually have like a meter stick or some kind of a radar thing that it can actually evaluate that you're flying closer than 30 meters? Yeah, I think that's gonna be hard. Okay, so that's very confusing, and to me, um, that is gonna be a problem, especially let's say you go to court and these officer have to prove that you actually broke the law by flying closer than 30 meters, or that other than, of course, they'll look for your logbook and you don't have it, then you're in trouble, right? But let's say they say, oh, you're flying closer to people, like you're flying like 20 meters from people. I'm like, how do you know that, right? So that's the problem. Oh, by the way, I have another bonus. Okay, so I already gave you two bonus. The third one, which is also confusing, it has to do with the controlled and uncontrolled airspace. Now, I'm not going to tell you my answer because I myself is confused, and I already actually researched on it already. I'm going to actually make a video on that. How do you know you're flying in the controlled airspace versus uncontrolled? And it's not based on just the airport, right? For example, let's say we have the Toronto Pearson Airport, and we're supposed to fly from the center to the end of the radius, about, I think it's at 5.6 kilometers or 3 nautical miles. Okay, so from it. But here's the thing though, the control airspace is not flat. It's not like that. It's actually there. It's described as like almost like a funnel, right? For example, if you're in the center, obviously there's no way you can fly in a ground level, okay? Because from the ground all the way up to certain height is all controlled. Now, where with a basic pilot license, you cannot fly there. But if you go further, let's say about another miles away, then that space may alter. Like, for example, from the ground all the way to about 700 feet, you can fly in those space, even though it's part of the airport. So that's not a control airspace anymore. Okay. So I'm still investigating that because it's a bit confusing, and if you check online, there's no one really talking about it, other than if you're American, they kind of know more about that than us. Okay. They seem to know about, the different control airspace versus uncontrolled airspace. The reason we don't know about it is because there's not enough information. This is like this new Canadian drone laws just been implemented on June 1st, 2019, and I haven't heard anybody talk about control versus uncontrolled airspace and how do you define control airspace. And it's definitely not just based on horizontal length here. It's also the height. Because there's a Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D, Class E, Class F, and Class G. Right? G is uncontrolled airspace, whereas the rest is controlled airspace. But again, there's a different height measurement between them. Right? For example, the airspace A is so high that it doesn't affect us anyway. Right? Anyway, thanks for watching. Next time I don't know when yet. When I learn more about the airspace control versus non-controlled, I'll tell you more about it. But thanks for watching. EducateTube.com.